Perfect. Okay. Thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. I see there's 27 of us. That's pretty awesome. And I use my Samala kit just a little bit different than other people are out there. So by all means, you guys take and use what works best for you and work it your way. I know for some of us we do things differently, and I'm just showing you guys one way that works for me. So I hope you guys have luck with it. So I'm just gonna go over a real bit, a quick overview about Sommology. I know there's some people on that are brand new. We've put on quite a few people in this past 2 months, so I'm gonna do an overall about it, and then I'll go into what I do that's different than other wine guides. So what is Sommology? According to our Sommology guide that can be found in our tasting room, Sommology is everything related to food and wine pairings. It's an experience that simplifies and reveals the harmonies between um, food and wine. Okay, and then the next slide, I just have, you have to excuse me, I have a little bit of a cold, about what comes in our Samala kit. Everybody's Samala kits, Samology, this whole Samology thing came out, not this past harvest, but the harvest before. So it's been out for maybe 14 to 16 months, so we're all getting kind of used to it. But a lot of us that started before that, Samology was a brand new idea. We did very little of it before this, so it was a huge learning curve for a lot of us. And I think now that you guys have it, it's definitely a great tool for us to use that can increase our sales. And that's the part I'm going to teach you guys tonight. We're going to talk about how we use the green cards. I'm going to talk about how to use your tins and what to put in your tins. I'm going to talk about how to wow your guests and increase all those sales. Okay, so what do I keep in my Samology kit? You hear different various leaders talking about how they keep like macadamia nuts, or they keep licorice or chocolate or different things. I keep mine extremely simple. I keep lemon. You can keep fresh lemon slices in one of your tins, but as you can see in the picture, I use the pre-squeezed lemon that comes in a little lemon dropper. You can keep Skittles or jelly beans. I find that Skittles are cheaper than jelly bean, and they're so much easier to find all year round. And then I use my Sommology cards. What? I know, crazy. That is it. But my approach is less is more. And we always want to remember that our audience can buy wine anywhere. You are going to teach them why to buy our wine. And that's our main goal. Whenever we go in to a tasting, we're not there to teach them about Sommology. That's not our main goal. We're not there to do a lot of the other things. Our main goal is to introduce them to our wines and have them buy our wines. Everything else that we use should be a tool and shouldn't be a huge focus, is how I feel. So, how do we use our Sommology kit and keep it simple? So, before the guests arrive, I always pull out the 5 different kinds of wines that I'm showing that day, whether it be a Chardonnay, a Cabernet. I pull out those 5 wine cards, and then I pull out the 6 teaching cards that are in it. So there's one that's the balance of flavors, blending. There's another one that's temperatures. So I pull all those cards out and put it in. And then if the host has made any of the pairing food cards, like if they have roast beef out or if they have goat cheese out, I might pull that card out too and slide it in there. Um, and if you find that the host has made no pairings from the pairing cards, you might consider bringing one yourself in your tin, or coach them ahead of time so that they at least do one. And that's what I try to do. I always try to be proactive. I'll ask them like 3 or 4 days ahead of time, please provide me a list of what you're pairing with each wine, and please keep a list at your tasting. So I know when I walk into an event, I already know what they're serving with each wine, so I can kind of have an idea in my mind what I want to do. I know when we were showing Amped a lot, I would bring Oreos. Like I knew that that was a huge thing that would sell Amped, so I would bite the cost and bring Oreos every time. But I try not to get too caught up in buying extra stuff because, um, all of a sudden you'll find yourself running to the store all the time to buy all these things, and I try to keep it as simple as possible. Then when we talked about how I pulled all those cards out, at the start of an event, I pass one card to each of the guests and tell them to hang on to their card for later. Now, if it's a smaller event, I'll only pass out maybe not all the teaching cards, but I'll pass out all the type of wines we're going over at least. If it's a bigger crowd than that, I tell them that they get to fight over the cards. They can pick who wants to have a card or not. And usually it's the guests are really excited to have a green card. Okay, then after I've done that, and I start off, I always go through my first bit of the Traveling Vineyard spiel about how we've been around, how we bring wines to your doorstep. And then I always go over 2 rules before my tasting. I always set my expectations first. I always tell them, don't yuck somebody's yum. And then I go into more detail about that. And then I always have hold your taste, meaning that don't start your 4 wine tasting lessons that I'm going to teach them, the 4 steps, until everybody has some wine. And then if it's a really big crowd, I have a bell that I bring, and I designate somebody who wants to get paid with wine, and I'll put that bell in front of them, and I'll tell them that their job is, if it gets too loud in here and rowdy and people are talking over me, they're going to ring the bell, and I'm going to reward them with a sip more of wine. So they're working for wine, and people always love it. They think it's hilarious. And it works. When they get out of control and they ring that bell, people quiet down, and I reward them with wine. And then I go on, before I start my 4 steps, I start with the jelly bean card. I use Skittles. I always tell people, I always give this card to the host first. I start the evening by saying, this is her party. She's going to teach us our first lesson tonight. Since we're going to be trying wine, don't you guys want to learn the correct way to taste the wine? And they read through the card. I point out to them that the fact that the US is one of the only countries in the entire world that drinks their wine without food. And so it gets them really thinking, and you'll hear the aha moments, and people will be like, oh, yeah, you're right. And by giving them this tad bit, you're justifying to them why you're giving them this lesson. We don't realize it a lot of times. We're always wondering why people are teaching us. So it's always good to give that out there, and you're building that rapport of trust that you're going to need by the end of your presentation. Because the more the customer trusts you and relates to you, the more likely they are to buy from you. And then I go right into my next step, which is the 4 tasting steps, where you can find the color, the smell, the body, and then how to taste the wine. And I do believe we actually have a Sommology card that has all that in it now. Okay. Like I was saying earlier, I pull out each of the different kinds of wine cards to give to everybody. And at some point when we're trying, like say we get to the Riesling, we're trying Calamity Sue, and we're going through the 4 steps, which I only do with the first 2 wines. We do it together. The first wine I teach them. The second wine we review. The last 3 wines they kind of do on their own. But when I get to that point, like we're doing the Riesling, I'll ask them, okay, we're on step number 2. What do you guys smell? Do you guys ever get to a tasting and you're going through these steps and nobody is talking, it's quiet, or like nobody wants to speak up? That's when I'll say, who has the Riesling card? And the person will raise their hand, and I'll say, on the back of your card, if you turn it over, there's a paragraph that says fruity. Can you please read that? And they'll read, oh, it's supposed to smell like green apple, peaches, citrus blossoms. And then people will be like, oh, yeah, I can definitely smell the citrus. And it ignites a conversation, and it gets people talking. So I call that person, they're going to be the expert in that kind of wine. We roll through the next 2 steps, and when I get to the body of the wine and what pairs with the wine, I'll say to the Riesling expert, now if we're at your house, what would you be serving us? Read the paragraph that says goes with, and they'll always read some of the different foods, and people are like, oh my gosh, I love roast beef. I can eat this with roast beef. So it's another aha wow moment where you're painting the idea of what foods can go with this wine. Like suddenly that person that loves roast beef is going to think, oh my gosh, next time I have my roast beef sandwich, I can be eating like a Riesling, drinking a Riesling with it. So always do that part, because it's bringing back that, painting an image in your head, and it's giving them a reason to need that wine. Then I use my teaching cards throughout the whole entire presentation. I know, I'm sure you guys can all relate. We all get the questions about how to store wines, how do you blend wines, how can you tell the difference between a good quality wine and a poor quality wine. I mean, all those questions are out there, and how boring is it if we're constantly answering the questions to ourselves? I mean, it's like being in a classroom and it's a one-way conversation. That's not as much fun. So I put those cards out there so the guests can answer that. And so when I get asked that question, I'll say, "Oh, who's got the card called the effects of temperature?" And the person will raise their hand. I'm like, "Oh, you're our expert. Can you please read to us why?" And then everybody will quiet down. They'll listen to that person. It's somebody different that's speaking. Um, it's great. So your your crowd is teaching your crowd. So peers are teaching peers this. So people become more engaged about it. Um, and then sometimes, especially if I have a larger party, I'll bring raffle tickets, and every time they read a card, I'll give them a raffle ticket, and at the end, I'll do a drawing because I'm rewarding them for participating and volunteering to read these cards for me. Perfect. Okay, so by using Samology this way, what will Samology do for us? It creates an aha moment in the guests. Like, you'll see so many guests that light up that are so interested in your presentation. Often guests that are really engaged will shush other guests that start talking. So because they want to hear it, and so that's a really good momentum to have. That you don't have to regulate the conversation. Everybody in the room is regulating it and wants to know more. Um, it also shows your potential team members who are sitting out in your audience or is your host that anybody can do this. Like, you don't have to know all these questions yourself. We have resources, and I don't have to know them. I put them out to my audience to teach each other. I eventually do learn them, but that's what I'm showing these potential team members is like, I don't have to be the expert to do this. And it also creates a structure at your tasting that gets your guests way more involved. They're not just sitting there and listening to you teach them, they're actually participating in their learning. And they're really interested in it, sparking conversations and lots of positives coming out of it. So when your hosts and guests experience are elevated, you'll see higher sales, you'll see more sales, and they'll be more intrigued. And for you as a wine guide, it makes you more confident. You feel like the tastings that you're doing are becoming much, much easier because there's less pressure on you. And you'll find that it's going to become easier to build a team. I have definitely found that. In the next screen, I'm going to show you guys. This is a slide that I've added. This is my results since I've started using this technique. I ran all my numbers tonight, and this is what it is. My average sales before I started to do this were $323 an event. Afterwards, I'm averaging $380 an event, which is a 17% increase. So I've already increased my sales just by having my people more engaged. My average sale from person went from $42 to $73. That's an average of 2 bottles more per person. Melody and a lot of those guys that I talk to out there, I'll tell them, I'll come from an event, I'll call them on my way home. I just sold 3 bottles to everybody. I easily, since I've started this, sell to every single guest that's out there. I rarely have a person that is sitting in my crowd that does not order. And because I'm using the Lori Stryker script about how to sell shipping, I'm selling 3 bottles to all those people. So I ran my numbers too, and I didn't put this part on here, but my average ITOs before this was 3. My average ITOs after this was 5. So I am selling to more people, and I'm selling more when I sell to them. Then what was really interesting is I ran my numbers about the team members who hosted an event or were in the crowd that joined. I know a couple are on tonight, like Carrie Baxter is one. Carrie attended my event, and she saw this setup. And I remember her and I chatted. She messaged me like 2 weeks later, and we had a conversation. And she said, it seemed really easy. All the cards were out there. I really enjoyed your event. and people were engaged. I would like to learn more. So last year I had 2 out of my 10 team members. I put on 10 people last year. 2 of them were past hosts or past guests. This year I've put on 21 people, and out of that 21 people, 6 of them have been sitting in my crowd or they've been hosts themselves. So I think that number kind of speaks for itself. It's an 8% increase in my team members for my tastings. And I just recently started to use the new commercial idea that Rick had talked about. One of my downlines, actually, it was Carrie, shared with me her conversation with Rick. So I've started to use that too. But just using this whole Sommology setup, I found has increased my amount of local wine guides that I'm getting in interest. Okay. A little bit more about using the Samala with our events. One thing that a lot of us forget is there's the QR code reader on the back of our bottles. Always market this idea. People love this idea, and this is something that you can sell a lot of during any season. You can always gift wine any season, whether it be wedding season, birthday season, holiday season. You should be using this to market it. I always tell my audience, don't worry about what foods go with what wines tonight. When you buy your favorite wine and you get it home, you're just going to scan your QR code reader on the back, and it's going to tell you exactly what foods go with it. And whenever I gift a wine, I gift one of our Traveling Vineyard wines, right in the card, I tell them, I've gifted you a wine and I've gifted you a meal. Please scan the code on the back to find a delicious meal that's going to pair with your wine. So then you've just painted the idea in somebody's mind, oh my God, I can give somebody a whole meal with their wine. That's amazing. They're going to love this idea. Now they have a reason to want to buy wine as a gift. And you're showing them just how easy it is to do it. I will always say to my host when I'm talking about this, our host tonight, she's used this website. How easy was it to find your food pairings? And she'll always be like, oh, it was so easy. It gives so many different, and she'll just go on about it. So then you have the peer telling the peers about something. And psychology behind selling shows that if somebody's friend tells you to do something, you're more likely to do it than if a stranger had told you the same thing. So now you've got a peer telling a peer, oh my gosh, you need to use this, you need to try this. Okay, next. I always tell people, you don't have a QR code reader, that's no problem. You can pick up a bottle, and I talk about how to read the numbers on the back. And I also tell them that if they just go to my business, I give them my business card and tell them if they can just go to my website and they can put the code in on the bottle at any time, and it's going to pop up with everything as well. So now, if they're not like tech savvy, I've just handed them a business card of mine and a reason to go to my business webpage to look at it. Okay. Then I wrap up usually talking about the QR code reader in the back. Now that you've impressed your guests with what they can have them for, what you can serve people on the way over for dinner, I always tell them we love to entertain people. Now you have access to like hundreds of recipes that are going to pair amazing with this wine. Now you can wow your friends. Everybody loves to wow their friends. And you're going to sell them 3 bottles. First bottle is to open and enjoy when they first get it. The second bottle, I always tell them they're going to share it with a friend. And this is a great time. You're going to have a friend over, you're going to share it with them, and you're going to go to my Samala G website, and you're going to cook them something delicious to go with it. Whether it be brownies with your fasada or a steak to go with your nice lox. Okay. On to the next page. Okay. This part is huge. I often forget to do this myself, but in our tasting room, there's all these quick reference Sommology sheets. If somebody books a party while I'm at a tasting, I give them one of these sheets, and I'll tell them if I can remember. I don't always remember, but I'll tell them, if you book a party tonight, I'm going to give you a secret Sommology pairing sheet just for you, just for people that book a party. And then when I give out these sheets, they already have my name, my information, and stuff on it. And then sometimes when I do vendor shows, I have these as well. and I give them out other times, but you always put your name on them. And let me tell you why. I attended a tasting back in 2010. The rep gave out one of these sheets, the exact sheet. And I remember being like so wowed by this presentation. I barely knew anything about wine. I kept that sheet with her name on it. I kept it till 5 years later when I went to go sign up. I still had her sheet and I knew her name and I looked her up and she was no longer with Traveling Vineyard. But I had that sheet the entire time. And from point A to point B, I would tell people, I would show them this sheet. I made them copies. I gave it away to people and it had her name on it. So I hope I brought her business in other times. But that's whenever we give out something, we're always going to want our information on it. And I believe tonight, this is the last slide. This is where I cut this off. Does anybody have any questions about this? You guys can type your questions in at the bottom and I'll try to figure this out. But if not, you guys can always find me on Facebook and ask any questions.
I think people can raise their hand. I was looking at it. They can raise their hand and we can unmute them.
Okay, we can do that too. If you guys can figure that out and see if I can figure it out on this side.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, either type it in or the option to raise your hand and we'll get a notification and we can unmute you.
Right. And I hope you guys found this helpful. And feel free to ask me any questions at any time, whether it be on Facebook. Are we getting any questions? Oh, Melody. How do I unmute Melody? Okay. Unmute Melody. Okay. Melody?
I'm on my computer.
Oh, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, crap.
Hi, Melody. Well, you raised your hand up.
That was a great job, Nicole.
Okay, thank you. Did you have a question? Mel?
No, I don't have questions.
Oh, you just wanted to say hi.
You did a great job. That's a great job.
Okay, thanks, Mel. I'm going to mute you again.
Oh, Cheryl has a question. Cheryl Brannick.
Let me find. Do you see? I don't see it, Heather. Can you unmute her?
It's not letting me. I think you need to, but her name's Cheryl Brannick.
Oh, it just came up. It just came up.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to mute you, Cheryl. Hi, Cheryl. Can you hear us?
You hear me?
Yeah, yay, it works. Okay, good.
You don't put any chocolate inside your tins?
No, not normally. Sometimes they will carry dark chocolate M&Ms if I know I'm going to be showing like Amped or some wines that go really well with it. But I try to keep the cost down and how much I'm putting into that because you know, showing some chocolate with a wine won't always sell that wine. But if like with Amped, that was like the selling point for that. So I try not to, but it would be something really easy that anybody could, I guess.
Okay.
Did I answer it? Was that helpful?
No, it's very helpful. I'm learning, so I just want all aspects. So thank you. It's very helpful.
Yeah, and you know, I think using this system when you're new is an easy way of being able to still focus on what you're doing with your presentation and not have to worry too much about having to know everything. So,
great. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Courtney Kaler has a question.
Courtney Marie.
And so does Joan Hall.
See, it still has Melody's hand up, but Melody probably doesn't know it. Oh, she took it. Yeah, it hasn't no hands have popped up, but you said Courtney does? Okay.
Yeah, Courtney Kaler.
Courtney, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, did you have a question?
Oh my God, you can hear me right now.
Yeah.
That's creepy.
Yeah.
No, I was just saying that it was really helpful, and I love that technique, so I'm going to try to incorporate it. Aunt Sue actually did that this past weekend. Shout out Aunt Sue, listening on her cell phone right now. I'm doing 3 jobs at once. She handed out the cards to guests so that they could look at it, and I was like, that's different. I never thought of doing that. And then, lo and behold, someone actually does it, and it's effective. which you showed the proof for. So thanks for sharing that. I'm definitely going to use it.
No problem. Aunt Sue knows what's going on. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's just I'm a school teacher, so I know the more that the students are involved, the better the outcome. So I said, why not do it for wine? So
That makes complete sense.
yay. Okay. Well,
Thanks.
thanks, Courtney.
Woo.
Okay. And I think Joan Hall.
Joan, yes, Joan Hall.
Okay, Joan,
And
I'm
my
unmuting
name.
you. Can you hear us, Joan? Joan, are you there? Heather, are you there?
I'm there still. I don't
Joan,
know
can
what
you hear us?
happened to Joan.
Joan, are you there?
Hi. Yes, I'm
Oh,
here.
Okay.
there she is.
Did you have a
We're
question?
in Wyoming, so we're far, far away.
I had a delay. Okay.
Yeah, definitely there's a delay. I love the 4 square with the suggestion pairings with the wines, but some of it is pretty much outdated. And I just wondered if anybody is going to update those with some of the new wines we have.
I think some of those they just list the type of wines. Like it just says a Chardonnay, or it says like a Merlot. It doesn't say a specific name. It just says the type. And those have been around ever since I started and before that.
So we need to try to place the wines we have now into those categories then.
Yeah, yeah. And I hand those out because I know that not all my customers are always going to drink my wines, but if they're referring to that sheet to see what pairs with their Chardonnay, they're still looking at my sheet with my name. So, something I'm always going to be in the back of their mind, and they might come back to order. They might remember, oh, I had a fabulous Chardonnay from there. I'll order from Nicole again. There's their information. Or they might pass that information along. They might have a friend come over, talk about something, and then she's got my information to pass on.
Okay, that's great. I just had used those prior, and then at the last tasting event I went to, one of the guests asked, do we have something that shows if she wanted to serve, I'll just pick something easy like lasagna, what wines do we have that would go good with that? So kind of a reverse of these are the wines we have, these are the food pairings. On the other hand, these are food pairings, what wines would go good with them?
Yep, and that's exactly what I used that sheet for before I was a wine guide. I would go and do
Okay.
so. Yep, that will work that way too.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Okay, I'm gonna mute you then again, Joan. Okay, last call. Do we have any other questions? Raise your hand if you do.
Didn't see any new ones.
Or they can type in the box. Okay. Nope. I think we're all good then. If I missed you guys, just let me know. Just shoot me a message on Facebook and I'll answer your question. But oh, I just saw one. I think Amy just went up for a question.
Yes.
Okay, let me unmute her. Hi, Amy. Can you hear us, Amy? Oh, there she is. Can you hear us, Amy?
I can hear you.
Perfect. I can hear you now.
Okay. So my question is what are you using the lemon juice for?
Oh, yes. You'll see a lot of people will do the grape and lemon juice demonstration. I don't do the grape part. But I was actually just talking with Melody and Heather the other day, and they had a great way to do it. But so that was a side note. The lemon is whenever I try our first white wines. If it's really acidic, like it burns the back of your palate. Some people don't like that, and I know I don't. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna have them put a drip or two of lemon in their wine, swirl around, and it will take that acidity out of their wine. And I always do that with my first wine as a wow factor and to teach them that.
Very nice. I never heard that before. So
Yeah.
you don't use like your cracker to take the taste away from one to go to the next.
Nope. We the way our tasting sets are set up is you can go from one wine to the next wine.
Okay.
Perfect. No,
Thank
great
you.
question. Yep. Great question. Okay, I'll put you back on mute. Anybody else have a question before we hang up. I'm going once, going twice. Okay.
Sold to no questions.
Well, thanks guys for tuning in tonight, and everybody have a wonderful evening.
Yes, thank you, Nicole.
Thanks.
All right, good night, everybody.